Hi, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm going to have the comments up in this corner and myself up in this other corner. Okay. All right, so how many people are watching? We've got 17 people here. Okay, so let me just get this out of the way. So, okay, cool. You can hear me in the UK. All right, awesome. Let's talk about Dapps. Let's talk about decentralized applications. Let's talk about blockchains, about DAGs, about consensus algorithms, about scalability, right? That is the word of my week. That is the theme of my week right now is scalability. And how do we get there? These are things I've been thinking about a lot. But what I want you guys to do is type in any questions you have, any concerns, anything, comments even. Maybe you want to talk about politics. I'm just kidding. Let's keep it technical, but I will answer all of your questions in this live stream. So just I'm waiting for the first one. Bulletproof coffee, by the way, is some good stuff. Bulletproof coffee. It is they mix grass-fed butter with coffee and it's supposed to unlock some cool stuff. I'm posing a question from Joao Santos, who cannot be here. All right. Hit me up. What are the specific, Cesar asks, what are the specific challenges facing voting and election style dApps? I get confused about the idea that a government could have a lot of computing power and vote multiple times. Okay, so there's already been a country to implement voting on the blockchain. It was an African country, and the name of it, it doesn't come to mind. But if you search African country blockchain voting, you'll find one example. What are the specific challenges? Well, okay, when we think about voting, right? When we think about voting, right now voting happens in person, right? And there's a reason for that, because if there was any kind of server, any kind of single entity that held all the votes for some populace, then that would be a single point of failure, right? Somebody could hack that server. They could perform a cross-site scripting attack. They could DDoS that website. They could do SQL injection. There's a whole host of techniques, well-known, documented techniques for hacking a server. Hacking, I mean like getting root access to a Signal server. But when it comes to, that's why at least the US government and all of Europe actually hasn't done that yet. But what the blockchain offers is a way for us to store data that cannot be tampered with and is not controlled by a single entity, right? This is immutable data. What better use case for immutability than voting, right? This is your vote, you made it, it's done. Now, the real question comes into play when we talk about authentication. How do we let you vote and it's only you and nobody else? How do we prove that you're a unique voter? Now, is there a decentralized way to do this? So far, that problem has not been solved. One person, one vote. How do we solve that identity problem in a decentralized way? No one has really solved that. But what we can do is a kind of meeting the problem halfway, where we can say, let's use a centralized authentication. This could be your passport, some government issued ID, and allow you to vote on a blockchain, and your transaction contains the encrypted version of your passport ID, your unique ID. So that's one way to do this. But in terms of, has anybody done it on a large scale? No, but I think this is one of those systems where you can build one for a small group, a local community, and then you can scale it from there. You can say, oh, well, it works for my biking group. We all vote there. Now let's give it to my local city government, right? The mayor's office. And if your city is kind of progressive, they might trial run it for some certain things, maybe internally for the Senate, and then they could keep scaling. Eventually, by word of mouth, this system will get so popular that hopefully some nation-state government will adopt it. Alex asks, I uploaded an app to IPFS and accessed it through the public gateway, and then I stopped my local node. I can still access it. Why? Since you said that a node will specifically need to download it, Alex. So Alex, when you upload some content to IPFS, that content still lives on your computer. What you're doing actually is not sending it anywhere. You are broadcasting to the network that, hey, I have my content right here on my local machine. So when you perform a command, like let's say IPFS add, what you're actually doing is you're saying IPFS add, and then let's say it's a cat image on my local desktop. You're saying to the entire IPFS network, here's the cat image, it's on my local machine, come pull it. So then other nodes can then pull it via this BitTorrent-like mechanism that's kind of like BitSwap. They call it BitSwap in IPFS. But you're not actually sending it anywhere. You're just telling the network, and then nodes can pull from it. If you do want to store it on a different computer, there's a manual way to do that. You can add a list of nodes that are by their hash, their identity. You can use there's actually layers on top of IPFS. Like one, for example, is called Astral Boot. So Google that, Astral Boot, ASTRALBOOT, that allows groups of nodes to form this kind of collective together and then accept content for upload. Fabius asks, what are some good resources to learn Web3.js, or if it can explain how it works? Should we use the latest version 1.0 or end up, or stick to 0.20 and similar stable versions? So Fabius, when it comes to Web3, it's facing a documentation problem that a lot of newer technologies face, where there's going to be more documentation for the older version just because it's been around longer than the newest version. So of course, 0.2 is going to have more documentation. However, what should you be using? Definitely 1.0.0, the latest version. For this stuff, yes. When it comes to like, new versions of iOS, no, you can just kind of like stick to the old version because the new one's super buggy. But because this is such a bleeding edge technology, having the newest version of it is absolutely essential to being able to have it integrate with third-party libraries, because everything is being, you have to realize that everything is being updated in real time all the time in this space, right? Nothing is static here. Everything is dynamic. So you want to pull the latest of everything all the time. And because it's something so important, then you definitely need to pull the latest version. Web3.js is super cool. And then your next question was, what are some great resources to learn about Web3.js? I would say, obviously, besides the Ethereum docs, they have a wiki on their GitHub that is pretty intensive. They have this read the docs page, which is also pretty intensive. Yeah, what else is there? I think really what I do, I'll tell you what I do. I go on GitHub and I search for these projects, right? I've refined my way of searching on GitHub. Like I use GitHub for like Google for code. So if I want to see some cool Web3.js example, I'll type in Web3.js, or then like some variation of that, like Ethereum demo, Ethereum simple, Ethereum example, Ethereum HTML, Ethereum JS, Ether.js, right? And then I'll search by the code that I want, like the language, right? In this case, it would be JavaScript. And if you get good at searching on GitHub, just as good as you are on Google, because you guys are probably all very good Googlers, right? You have to be in this class, pretty much, right? So if you get as good at searching for code on GitHub as you are searching for other data on Google, you will be unstoppable, right? You'll be unstoppable. So I use GitHub for my resources. Like I'm always finding amazingly simple code samples that implement some concept in 100 lines of code or less. These are readable code examples. They have a demo associated with them. The README is rich with documentation. And all of this really exists on GitHub. Guys, GitHub has 26 million developers on it, right? Every developer is on GitHub. That is the place for uploading projects. Sometimes some dude will, in Siberia, will upload a project. I don't know why I said Siberia, but they'll upload a project to GitHub just for themselves, right? And they'll add some installation docs just for themselves. And guess what? Now it's publicly available for everybody. So there's a lot of amazing content on GitHub, and there's a lot of amazing code on GitHub. And a lot of it is just not in the public view because most people don't use GitHub, but you do. So that is your superpower. You're able to parse through this amazing database of code. So I would check. All that is to say that I would check at Web3.js for some amazing code. Okay, so Matthew asks, I challenge that having your vote recorded in perpetuity is a good idea. Any system must defend against governments that become problematic and wants to persecute particular voters. Right. So okay. So I mean, there's different ways that we could do this. One is a completely transparent way of voting where everybody knows what your vote was. Another way is an anonymous way of voting where there would have to be an encryption scheme. This would be a two-way encryption scheme where you would have to authenticate your vote via your ID. However, when it's recorded on the public ledger, it is anonymous. Like, it cannot be traced back to you. I would look at Monero, the Monero blockchain's ring signature technique for a good example of how this can be done. JSK asks, I want to create a crypto game with Pokemons for the midterm project. Awesome. Pokemon can feed on Pokemon food. Yes. They can evolve, etc., etc. With limited number of Pokemons, is it worth trying to build the game? Yes. Yes, it is. Of course it is. Oh my God, that sounds so awesome. I would love to see a Pokemon game. That's one of those games that would definitely be popular in the community because A, everybody knows what Pokemon are. B, it's a crypto collectible. You could just build it off of the CryptoKitty source code, which is publicly available. You would use the ERC 721 smart contract creation guide. And yeah, you would just store the images of the Pokemon on IPFS. And JSK, if you want to take it a step further, you can use AI, like generative adversarial networks, to generate new types of Pokemon and have that embedded somewhere in IPFS, or you can use OpenMind, or yeah, you would have it. How would you do this? But yeah, okay, I'm just thinking out loud here. But ways of integrating AI and blockchain. I mean, there's a lot we could do here. I don't want to get too much on a tangent, but yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yes, you see what I'm saying here, right? I actually have a video on this, generating Pokemon with GANs, but yeah, this is. I'm just thinking like V2, V3 here. Anyway, but yes, please do that. That would be awesome. Alex asks, let me rephrase, as you said, okay, I'll rephrase. What I do, when I do IPFS add, it will broadcast to all nodes, yes. But will this mean that other nodes to which I broadcast will actually go in and download the content? So they can see the content, they can choose, they can opt in to choose, they can opt in to download that content. It's not automatically sent to anybody, okay? So like I said, you can join a cluster of nodes. Like if you Google IPFS cluster or Astral Boot, you can join a cluster of nodes such that every time you add something to IPFS, it's going to go, then it will be sent to this other cluster of nodes. But by default, IPFS doesn't send your data to someone else. Ajay asks, hey Siraj, how practical / scalable do you think deep learning plus blockchain solutions are? Can you provide some examples? Okay, so guys, I'm gonna blow your mind right now, okay? I'm gonna blow your mind right now. So you are so lucky to be in this live stream, by the way, because I have not even publicly said this yet, but okay, here we go. Here we go. I was in an Uber not this morning, but last morning. Okay, I was taking an Uber to work, and I asked the driver, I was like, so how are you feeling about Uber? He said, it's okay, I don't get paid that much. Uber takes away a lot of the cuts. They didn't used to. I asked him if he would switch to a service that paid him more. He said, absolutely, without a doubt. Of course, all drivers think that way. Then I also asked, would you switch to a service that not only pays you more, it also gives you a share in the service? He said, that's possible. Of course I would do that. Who wouldn't do that, right? These drivers are making their livelihood from these apps. Of course they would switch to a service that A, pays them more, and B, gives them some shares or equity in the company, right? You cannot do that with a centralized model, right? That's just not how it works. You can do that with a decentralized model, right? So I think that's a great example of blockchain and AI, is a network of, it could be self-driving cars, it could be human-run cars. You would still be using AI to create the routing algorithms to match riders and drivers together. You would use the blockchain for application level constructs, identities, the identities of cars and drivers, reputation points, but you would store the actual data in IPFS, and then the AI, the models would live in IPFS, the trained models. They would do training. They would coordinate the training via the blockchain. I think OpenMind is a great example of how this can be done. Well, we'll talk about that in week 9. Actually, the last week. That's week 10. That's the most. That's the newest stuff of everything. So that's why I saved that part for last. But what I'm saying is, like, there is such a huge space here for someone to build a competitor to Uber, the biggest logistics company in the world, $60 billion in revenue. Okay, no, valuation, 60 billion. And they are growing so fast. And this is how you compete with Uber. If you go for a centralized model, you can't compete with Uber. No one can, right? Lyft can't. But you can if you build a decentralized version. And there have been a few examples. Lazuz is an Israeli startup. Arcade City kind of did it, yes, but no one's really done it very well. Mark asks another question. Do you have any videos about Ton blockchain, or are you going to make such video? I've never heard about Ton blockchain. Ramakant asks, when government says that they are implementing blockchain as part of the smart city, what exactly do they mean? Which systems will be leveraging blockchain? Okay, so think about if you're a government, right? Think about if you're a government. You have a city full of people, and these people are using a bunch of connected devices, IoT, right? They've got smart thermostats, but these are private devices. But what do you as a government have to keep track of? Well, you've got to keep track of traffic lights. You got to keep track of sensors, of camera sensors. You got to keep track of sensors is a very broad word. You got to keep track of sensors for gas, of oxygen levels, of heat, of temperature, of public record stuff like with weather. All of the government connected devices need a way of speaking to each other. Now, what's a really inefficient way of doing this, right? What's a really inefficient way? Having every device send and receive data from a single server, right? That is very inefficient. Ideally, these devices could be talking to each other. They could be sending data between each other in a peer-to-peer way. And now this specific use case for a government-enabled blockchain would be a use case for a private blockchain, a private ledger. That means you don't need to use proof of work, right? Proof of work is only if you have a public ledger where you cannot trust the nodes. But if you own those nodes, or you helped implement those nodes, as the government did, then you don't need to use proof of work. And then you can use another consensus algorithm. Now, what would be a good blockchain for that? 1, Hashgraph. 2, IOTA. Hashgraph and IOTA are 2 great examples of a private ledger that doesn't use proof of work. And let me also just say about Hashgraph. Hashgraph is, you cannot compare it to Bitcoin or Ethereum. Don't do that, because one is a private ledger and one is a public ledger. Okay, so you can't just compare the two and say, oh, well, it doesn't need proof of work, so it's awesome. No, if Hashgraph was a public ledger, then it would need proof of work. It would fail in a split second because it would be Sybil attacked, 51% attacked. So people in general should never compare Hashgraph to Bitcoin or Ethereum. All right, let's keep going here. Where can I find the previous live streams? I've been missing a lot. Check out my YouTube channel. And yeah. Oh, it's also in the school. If you look in the school under the live stream section, you'll find it there. Okay, so then Gonzer asks, hard work to deploy Dapps to the internet. Do I need all node to load scripts? Load scripts? I guess you mean load scripts. I think there's a huge space of opportunity for people who want to build tools to make it easier to deploy Dapps. Some frameworks that do this that come to mind for me are Truffle, which we've talked about in this class. Embark, EMBARK. That's another one. Another one is Transmute, TRANSMUTE. Transmute. Eris Industries. But no one's really done like a node, like a node.js of Dapps, right? With all the scripts included, like like a Ruby on Rails, but for Solidity. No one's really done that. So there is a lot of space of opportunity there. Yes, I agree it's hard to deploy Dapps currently, but the better the tooling is, the better the space will be. So it's kind of like Bitcoin. Sometimes you can make money by selling shovels to the miners, to the gold miners, than by actually going and mining gold yourself. You have a better chance. So think about ways of creating businesses that enable dApp developers to deploy dApps to the internet easier. And how does that look? Okay, so now, who else is there? Ramakant asks, how do telecoms leverage the blockchain and IoT, as they have already lost on digital tech with respect to voice, chat, and video to OTT providers? So I used to work at Twilio. Twilio was a telecommunications company, right? So every time you have to use two-factor authentication on your phone to log in, that's likely the Twilio API happening behind the hood. So Twilio was a telecoms company, and I remember being there, and I remember introducing the idea of IPFS to the people there, and a lot of them thought, "Hey, this might just put us out of business." Seriously, well, one guy who I really talked in depth, he was high up there though. And so we thought about ways of integrating Twilio, like a paid model, and the business model just does not work. It's an entirely new business model, right? It's like Facebook, right? It's like you can tell, you can be a senator, you can tell Mark Zuckerberg to his face, we need the data to be private, we need the data to be this and this and this and this. No matter what he says, it goes against Facebook's business model to do anything other than manipulate people for attention. It goes against, it's the business model. So either Facebook has to switch their business model entirely to one where they are not incentivized to manipulate people, or that just keeps happening, right? So you can say, I'm sorry, whatever, but it doesn't change the fact. So anyway, we need to create new businesses, and a lot of telecoms will die because their business model is just not suited to these blockchain and IoT technologies. So Mark asks, what is the strongest argument to involve people in the crypto economy? That's a great question. That's a great question. I think the best example of this is earn.com, right? So what is some use case where you want to receive small payments for some value that you bring to people? And it is accessible to as many people globally as possible. And you're getting as much as possible. So the transaction fee is as low as possible. Earn.com. Okay, check out earn.com, where you can basically create an email and get paid for answering questions to that email directly. I need to actually do this. So I'm gonna set this up like after this probably. But I mean, I'll still answer questions for free and stuff, but like just anyway, yeah, so like just fast payments, micro payments, international payments, some service that uses that. I think earn.com is one good one, and another one will be games. Games, really giving gamers, if you can create a popular game where gamers are paid for their work in the game with real life, money, then that is a good use case as well. And lastly, I want to say securities. So anytime that a user in an app can own a share of the revenue in terms of some equity, of course they're going to prefer that to something where they don't earn if the UI is the same. So Rafal asks, is it possible to integrate smart contract with the Whisper protocol? Yes, that's the point. So nodes can communicate with each other directly without needing to go through the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine, but we can use smart contracts on top of that for, let's say, coordinating between nodes, or Yeah, I mean, a whole bunch of ways, like, right? So a chat app could use Whisper, but then you'd use the EVM for, say, usernames or for status updates. Anything you need the network to agree on. Let's keep going here. We have 5 more minutes because it's a 30-minute live stream. Okay, so let's see. Cesar asks, on the Pokemon Showdown site, you can generate random teams and play someone. Would it be possible to verify the winner in a game? I see they bet sometimes, but I believe it's not enforced to pay up. Yes, it would be possible to verify the winner in a game. I've never seen that site, and that sounds like a perfect use case for blockchain technology, for trustless computing. Jing Chen asks, decentralized apps are unstoppable, correct? You cannot stop it by just taking off a few nodes on the network. That's not a question, but you're right. Okay. Guillermo asks, I haven't had time to look over the previous videos. Are we going to be able to view them ever after week 10? Yes, you have lifetime access. Mukesh asks, where does Hyperledger stands in Dapps? Hyperledger has been around for a while, and I haven't really seen anything built on top of it, or I don't know, that developer ecosystem is just not, there's not a lot of developer activity there. So yeah, I mean, it's a cool idea, but yeah, I just haven't seen anything cool come out of that. So, and it's been around for a while. I wrote about it in my book like 3 years ago, so it's been around. Okay, let's keep going here. Fabius asks, I'm trying to develop a gambling game for the midterm project. Awesome. I want the player to use my crypto that's built upon ETH as features. Is there a way to change my crypto to real ETH? Oh, interesting. Of course. So there are exchanges that you know about. Oh, exchanges, yes. So there are a bunch of mainstream exchanges. You can also build your own exchange inside of the game. And it's not as hard as it sounds, actually. That could actually be a good lesson in this course, how to build an exchange. What do you guys think? How to build an exchange, right? So for like Bitcoin has a very easy exchange protocol. It's called the atomic swap. It's got like some number attached to it, but it's like this kind of escrow deal where you have a currency, the other person has a currency, you want to exchange that currency without needing a middleman. You can put it into escrow, and then you can exchange the value between both of you without needing a middleman, and that happens via smart contract. So you can build a smart contract in your DApp to allow for an exchange between your in-game currency and ETH, or even USD, but that would require let's just say between that and another cryptocurrency, between USD or a state currency, that would be like another step. And for that, I would think about integrating something like Stellar. Stellar is the protocol that integrates banks and cryptos and everything really together. 2 more questions. Let's see. Matthew asks, what's your best guess for the first killer dApp? Great question. I would say Steemit has done okay. I mean, it's done okay well. Like, it's not done bad, but I guess like Steemit isn't it. I'm gonna say it's ride sharing. I'm gonna say it's like, once we either get self-driving cars or someone does ride sharing right, that will be the killer use case, because it's so easy to build that business. Guys, I'm telling you, if I wasn't teaching right now, if I wasn't building this school, this YouTube channel, etc., I would probably be building a ride sharing DApp, because it's so easy to get those initial clients. Your clients, you just take Ubers and you tell the Uber, hey, I have a better deal for you. There's your first client right there. Okay, so you get like 30, 40 of those, and then you get 30, 40 users, and you have a market. And then you have a use case that you can show investors. And hey, this works, and you can scale it. So, and it's just fun. It's just fun to do that. Like the idea of competing with Uber, that's just fun, right? So yeah, that's what I think. And then Mark asks, any decentralized project that implements blockchain compression or something like that, it should make a huge step in scalability. Um, Interesting. Blockchain compression. Well, there are different proposals for scalability. Like there's sharding, there's state channels, there's the Lightning Network, there's um, doing away with proof of work entirely, so new consensus algorithms. Look at Tangle for an example. But I don't think there's like a you know what would be cool would be like a blockchain network that incentivizes miners to compress the blockchain. So they're incentivized to compress it by running some compression algorithm locally. I'm just thinking out loud here, but that would be cool. So yeah, it seems like people want the exchange lesson. So okay, so I'll look into that for like week 9 or week 10 at the end. Okay, so cool. I'm listening. I'm listening. Okay, cool. Last, answer one more question. Ajay asks, do you think quantum computing would affect blockchain technology in the foreseeable future? Yes. So Bitcoin is not quantum resistant. SHA-256 specifically is not quantum resistant. So they're going to have to upgrade. And there's already plans for that. There's already like a path forward for like the post-quantum world that the Bitcoin developers have, the core developers have proposed. So I'm not afraid of quantum like destroying Bitcoin or something. So how else would it affect it? We could definitely think of a better consensus algorithm than proof of work. That's for sure. That's what I would first look into. How can we build a consensus algorithm as good as proof of work in terms of trustlessness that requires 100th or 1,000th of the computing power, and that would do a lot of good for the world in terms of energy efficiency. Okay, I'll do one more. What do you think of decentralized autonomous organizations? Are they feasible? Yes, they're feasible. Bitcoin is one. Ethereum is another. And we're going to start seeing more. And yes, I mean, any DApp can be considered a decentralized autonomous organization. Vitalik actually has a great post on this. Actually, chapter 1 of my book has a great post on this. But yeah, yes, they're feasible. You can think of any DApp as a decentralized autonomous organization, and all companies, organizations in the future will be like that. Okay, so that's it for the questions. Well, one more. Oh God, you guys have some really good questions here. How can you do driver verification and passenger security after some incidents in India recently? Okay, so this is really the last answer here. Think about a plane or a train or any kind of public service, like public transport. You have one driver, right? What if you decentralize leadership? Then everybody on that plane is accountable for if the plane crashes. That's not ideal, right? So when we say decentralized, that doesn't necessarily mean we decentralize accountability. We should have one point of accountability, one group of people, one group of this. It doesn't necessarily have to be one behemoth organization, but it could be groups of people across the world, right? So there should still be some people who are held accountable. And that won't change in a decentralized app. And in terms of driver verification, that can be done via government ID on the blockchain, but doing it anonymously using something like ring signatures from Monero. Okay, so that's it for my Q&A. It's been good talking to you guys. I have a lot of content to make. And yes, till next week. I'm looking forward to these midterms. You guys, I'm looking forward to these midterms. You better do these midterms. I will personally come after you in the Slack channel and make sure that you submit it, because this is not a game, okay? You paid for this course, so you have to do the midterms. They're going to be awesome. They're good for you. It's good for you, and it's good for everybody, okay? So thanks for watching. I love you guys. And for now, I've got to go finish drinking my bulletproof coffee. Check that out, Tim Ferriss. So thanks for watching.